Vietnam, the Manson family. By 1969, the flower children were eating themselves. The dream of love had been cannibalized into hate. In 1968, sigil-imprinted blotters of Satanic Mojo black acid hit the scorched Californian streets. Its visions were so dark, so powerful, and so apocalyptically mind-bending, sending its users into mystical and sexual frenzy that it quickly gained notoriety with the emerging occult revivalists of Los Angeles and San Francisco. Was it a botched military recipe, or an evangelical underground chemist creation? Scores of users were hospitalized, their brains literally fried from the visions. Realizing its dark, deathly potential, the chemist hid the remaining 100-gallon drum, enough to trip out the entire planet, deep in the desert of Nevada's Death Valley. In AD 1972, it was discovered. Black acid.
Dennis Franklin. My base of operations is New York, New York. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan, which I think influenced me in my art more than anything else since my birth. I was raised by a single mom, so she pretty much used to do her thing and leave me with my older cousin, who was a straight psychopath in the best kind of way, like gangster motherfucker, who did nothing but love Three Stooges and the horror movies. No, I didn't particularly like horror movies when I was a kid. They used to scare the shit out of me. He would just make me watch them. And it kind of influenced my art, my personality, I think more than anything else. My grandfather was very much into the occult. He grew up in the South, in Alabama specifically, and he's of Cherokee descent. And in the South, they were very much into grimoires, like kind of like folklore, you know? Like, so he had a dowsing rod, and he had the 6th and 7th books of Moses, which are grimoires that were readily available in the South. And to black Americans, they would read these, and they would use them for things like playing the lottery, and he had dream books. So growing up, my grandfather was very much into the occult.
I discovered a few years ago that an anagram of my name spells Satanic Mojo, and this sent me on a completely different direction from the one I was going on to start with, and it obsessed me basically and led me to create the show that we're in at the moment, Come to the Sabbath. Inspiration for this show has come from conspiracy theory geeks online. And the conspiracy theorists will tell you all about the sort of MK Ultra related sex slave program where pop stars and little starlets are being ritually abused and mind controlled in tunnels hidden underneath Disneyland, where there's all kinds of ritual murder and child sex going on. So this is kind of inspired by that basically. It's also, in the pose or the layout is inspired as well by the Sabbath on the Brocken, which is the print that I was talking about that obsessed me as a child. I've done several cover versions of that in the last few years. Here's Anton LaVey, the head of the Church of Satan. Here again, another piece from the Super Satanic Saturday parties. Using LaVey's sigil there as a triple S, and then of course pointing out the similarity between that and David Bowie's lightning bolt makeup. Which personally I think he might have got from Oswald Mosley and his black shirts, because they used to wear badges like that in those colours. I remember very vividly seeing the Sabbath on the Brocken print for the first time, and it was in a school exercise book, And I remember I used to look forward to that lesson every week, so I could just sit and stare at this picture of devils shitting in pots and dancing around with erections and stuff.
For the show, I've done a triptych of canvases which draw on aspects of other events that are going on at the time. So in the middle, the centrepiece is the symbol for the process church of the final judgment and features the mighty Baphomet. Either side are similar canvases that feature Aleister Crowley and Vincent Gallo. You might think Vincent Gallo is an odd one, being an actor. Well, actually, he's actually an artist. He's all round. I think he's absolutely magnificent. Mr. Gallo is my favourite word at the minute, magnificent, if I like something. The reason he features in the pictures is because he was in one of the films here directed by Brian Butler called Night of Pan, in which he plays the god Pan.
How can you believe in Satan if you don't believe in God? She asked me. How can I believe in Satan if I don't believe in God? I believe in neither, not the horned one dancing about amongst fire and brimstone, nor the old man sat on a cloud surrounded by angels. No, Satan, my sweet Satan, is a symbol of defiance, a metaphor for rebellion. A symbol I use because it still holds power over the feeble minds of superstitious fools. Hail Satan! Satan is the teenager who rejects parental authority and strikes out alone to make their own mark on the world, to live by their own morals and set their own code of conduct. Not through fear of punishment, but through strength of conviction. Hail Satan! Satanic mojo. Satanic mojo is for the kids. Satanic mojo is the kids. And you know why they don't like you being called kids? It's because kids grow up to become goats. Goats who stray from the herd. Goats who fearlessly go clippity-clop over troll-infested bridges. Goats who on a moonlit night on a craggy mountain peak get their asses kissed at the Sabbath. Hail Satan! Now is the time to separate the sheep from the goats. Now is the time to separate the boys from the men. Now is the time for the kids to man up. Man up for a new age. The age of Aquarius, the Eon of Horus. We seek nothing less than the end of the world. The end of their world, that is, and not ours. We seek nothing less than the end of the world. The end of borders and restrictions. The end of money. The end of God. Hail Satan! Hail Satan! Hail Satan!
I was brought up by my grandmother, who was a partisan, and she's very Catholic, but she's got a lot of sort of pagan touch to everything. So she's really a herbalist, and she looks after all the sick people in the district, and she's very cool, very intuitive. Yeah, I like to describe my job as a muse. I think saying that you're an artist or a life model, a graphic designer, screen printer, whatever else I happen to be doing, too many fingers and too many pies.
Leave something witchy. Just like I would tell you, if you're going to do something, do it well. And leave something witchy. Leave a sign to let the world know that you were there. Have a good day.
Have you read about other muses end up sort of like going mad?
Going mad and getting forgotten, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I've got to look forward to.
Artistically, I think my main influences were definitely Marvel Comics, especially during the 70s. I was a really big fan of all the art that was on skateboards at the time. Definitely Jim Phillips, Santa Cruz artist. Vincent Cortland Johnson, who used to do all the graphics for Powell Peralta, because I would just sit and stare at skateboard catalogs and Thrasher like pretty much the whole time I was a kid.
Started the Satanic Mojo blog. The first thing I did with that was to arrange for Jinx Dawson to design a sigil for us, and that was like the first act really of the Satanic Mojo project proper. So basically what I've done with the Satanic Mojo project is to imagine my own timeline. I was born in 1967 up to the present day, and to look at aspects of pop culture or underground culture that particularly appeal to me, and I've woven a metafictional narrative that brings us through the 60s and 70s up to the present day, with emphasis on the psychedelic era and the occult revival of that time.
Why do you think there was such a fascination with the occult in the 70s?
From my own sort of research, we have, in the post-war period, this new phenomenon of the teenager comes up, where kids are sort of having their own fashion and their own music and their own lifestyles, and they're rejecting the sort of values that they've been brought up with. So I think that must have something to do with it. Also, there was a very strong bohemian scene, particularly in California in the sort of late 40s, early 50s, which is a spin-off of the Aleister Crowley Thelema scene and the OTO, where you've got people like Jack Parsons and Marjorie Cameron and Kenneth Anger coming along, and there was quite a strong scene there, and I think that was very influential on pop culture. We had Anton LaVey starting his Church of Satan in 1969, the hippies taking acid and having religious experiences, getting into Eastern mysticism, yoga, vegetarianism, all these things, I think, kind of combined to create this this very powerful kind of resurgence of interest in that subject matter. The rock stars like Jimmy Page, for example, were very open about their interest in Crowley and the occult in general. I think did create a very fertile environment for that kind of scene to grow in.
At the invitation of Jason Atomic and Manco, I produced this piece of artwork here, which is their tribute to Dracula AD 72 in many ways, though. Satanic Mojo 1972 AD, as it's called, though. One of my favourite films, Dracula AD 72, set in the swinging, druggy heyday of the early 70s, so mixing Christopher Lee, Peter Cushing, and the interests with the occult, which really kind of characterises the early 70s.
I think Satan is thinking for yourself. If you look at what is considered satanic, it's thinking for yourself, it's women having rights over their own reproduction, it's not following orders.
This next one's called Summon the Witches. Yes!
There was a shop in the early 70s in Brooklyn called the Warlock Shop, and it was run by Herman Slater, who everybody says was quite an abrasive individual, but he was a very warm and loving sort of person if you got to meet him. And this is exactly the place where, if you are interested in the Necronomicon, the book that Avon put out, that was given birth to was in the Warlock Shop, which eventually became Magical Child, and they moved to Manhattan. But they started out in Henry Street in Brooklyn. And Peter Lavenda, Chris Claremont actually was a big part of that scene. And there was like a whole witch war happening in New York where a lot of Gardarian, like everybody wanted to say that they were the top like coven. The way that the Son of Sam fits into that shop, because in New York, everybody who was interested in the occult would hang out at the shop. Kind of like, you know, it was just like the one place where people would meet. So even Peter Lavenda admits that like a lot of the people that were involved in the Son of Sam cult got their start at this store.
Brooklyn Central booking. After, my sources say, he confessed to being the 44 killer. After he told them he was a killing machine, ordered by a voice speaking through a neighbor's dog to carry out his bloody outrages against young pretty women. Police discovered in his car the 44 Bulldog revolver and a Thompson submachine gun. I'm told Berkowitz planned to use the revolver again and again and decided to take the 45 caliber machine gun, commit mass murder at a Long Island disco, and fight it out with Suffolk police in a blaze of glory.
Hitler lover and Jew hater is now working for the government in Whitehall as a consultant. April 1985. Oh, Maggie was the...
My name is Ilua Hauk da Silva, and the work I'm presenting here is flagellation and silice. The reason why I made these pieces is because, having grown up in Brazil, I have been exposed to the hypocrisy of the Catholic Church, and one of the things that I question is penance and the way that the Catholic Church suggests that penance is made. And if you think that the Catholic Church claims that Jesus is the Savior of humankind, then what is the need for flagellation? What is the need for wearing a cilice and mortifying the body? So my work deals with these issues, and aesthetically my work is made to be very, very beautiful, alluding to the beauty of Catholic churches, you know, opulent, luxurious, and actually really quite enchanting. So when you look at my work, you're actually first seduced by the beauty of the pieces, you know, the intricate metal work and the crystals, and then you really think about the pain that those objects could cause and how much they would hurt your body.
To renounce your set errors and heresies in which you have stood and standing and even now defiantly and obstinately stand with stubborn heart, but since the enemy of the human race is present in your heart, wrapping you up and entangling you with said errors, and you have refused and yet refused to abjure said heresies, choosing rather the death of your soul in hell and your body in the world, and to renounce said heresy and return to the bosom of the church and to cleanse your soul. And since you are determined to remain in sin, therefore inasmuch as you are bound by the chains of the excommunication from the Holy Church and are justly cut off from a number of the Lord's flock and are deprived of the benefits of the church and no more for have done as was possible, and we, the bishop and judge on behalf of the faith, sitting tribunal as judges, judging and having before us the holy gospels and our judgment, may proceed from the countenance of God and our eyes in the inquiry, and having before us the eyes only of God and truth and the holy faith and the expiation of the plague of heresy, and on this day and on this hour and place assigned they are to us, and you, upon hearing the sentence,
we give our judgment and sentence that you are indeed an impertinent heretic and truly such to be delivered and abandoned to the secular court. Wherefore this sentence we cast you away, an impertinent heretic, from our ecclesiastical court, and deliver or abandon you to the power of secular court, praying the said court to moderate and temper its sentence of death against you, and this sentence was given, etc. Just after midnight, since such a time is aptest for the Prince of Darkness for his dealings with men, being an uncouth and vacant time, and to return to the subject of cockcrow.
My name is Manco. For this show, I did a piece that is a doll's house in the corner. It's a house based on a panel from Satanic Mojo comic number 2. It's a layout of a house in San Francisco. I imagine it to be a beautiful Victorian painted ladies kind of house. And Lester inherited the house from his grandma. So it's a very proper setup after a bunch of Satanists and hippies moved inside. So at the top of the house, you have the high priestess's room. That little skull is made out of a horn. Actually, I met someone who carves skulls, tiny skulls, from a horn found in a forest, which is, I think, gorgeous. Next floor, we have the tripping room. So you have ashtrays and comics and porn and books like Stranger in the Strange Land and Frankenstein and lines cut on a mirror and lots of snacks and, you know, porn on walls, and it's all really fun if you're tripping, I'm sure. Lower down we have a bathroom, very much a grandma's bathroom that Lester sort of moved in with his furs, and this is his bedroom, a curiosity cabinet. Down here is a rug made out of a mouse that was killed by my friend's cat, and we had to skin it and make a little rug. Underneath we have, the kitchen and the study room. You know, dilapidated, falling apart study room, not really well looked after, full of random shit all over the place. I think it unexpectedly activates something, some kind of weird memory from a childhood, some kind of nostalgia, something really innocent, you know. A doll's house is a toy, it's not too demanding, you know, but you can go in there and sort of go through the rooms and imagine yourself walking around, and I think it's really accessible. Weird about the doll's house stuff because I never had one when I was a child, and so seeing doll's houses now, to me, just blew my little mind. I was like, oh my God, it's escapism, but also imagination and exercise and viewing the world in a different way. And personally, I hated that doll's houses and miniatures are generally seen as, you know, either toys of children or some like crazy old lady's twee hobby.
Well, 3 faces of Charlie at least. And Charles Manson's quite a pertinent character in all this scene. He's symbolises a lot of what happened with the fall of the hippie scene. Personally, I don't think Charles Manson is really the character we've been led to believe. I find it a fascinating character, reading Helter Skelter or Family or something like that. It's very amusing to read these kind of gonzo stories, but I don't believe it. I think the reason Charles Manson's still in jail is that he's innocent as charged, and that's why they won't let him out. He won't admit his guilt in order to qualify for parole. And he never will, because I don't think he believes he is guilty. I think they used him as a patsy. I think they deliberately wished to discredit the hippie scene because it was seen as some kind of threat to the status quo. And that's why we have Charlie in our show here, because yeah, he's a symbol, really, of how things can go so terribly wrong and be used in such a twisted way.
I think I break from a lot of the conspiracy theories is like, because they all want you to believe that all these people are connected. That Manson was in fact connected to the Zodiac Killer, that was in fact connected to the Son of Sam, and it's all one cult that's just kept going, which is, I think, is total bullshit. Like, you know, there are always going to be people that are interested in dark things, and there are going to be people that act upon their urges.
Do you know about the cult called The Process, a very secretive cult?
I don't think anybody met the Process and wasn't a little bit scared by them.
At the top, I would have thought there was somebody who was evil.
If you Google The Process, you're sure to come up with dozens of sites suggesting that there's this evil eminence behind everything that's going wrong in the world.
Death, 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 punishment and doom.
We were very provocative, deliberately provocative.
The black cloaks, we had really taken on to be scary and to make an impression.
Oh, it was extraordinarily intense.
One member of the group was possessed with this command that we should stone him to death.
Satan worshippers.
Oh, definitely.
Satan! Lucifer!
But throw in Christ as well. Imagine the flower children in London reading that. Like, what?
This is Christ and Satan, right? Oh! They did penetrate the highest tier of British rock royalty, which was the Beatles.
By 1967, the most famous people in the world are fascinated with the occult.
We got in trouble for it. Rolling Stone thought we was into devil worship.
To begin with, we were very provocative, but we were trying to be a respectable group, and of course, bang.
In a scene reminiscent of a weird religious rite, 5 persons, including actress Sharon Tate, were found dead.
I'm talking to Father Malachi of The Process, which has been linked to the Charles Manson group.
What is the process? No laughing matter.
We were stupefyingly blind to the consequences of freaking people out incessantly.
That's a very rich vein for getting people's goats, as it were.
So much for letting us present the movie tonight. If anyone's got any questions, please fire away, otherwise we're all just going to go and get a drink.
When I was growing up, the main rapper in Detroit, who has since gone on to influence Kool Keith and Eminem specifically, was Esham, who Esham was a straight satanic rapper. He was the first black person I ever heard say, Hitler was my father, Satan was my grandfather, and this was in 1986. He would put on like ICP and the Juggalos, they all got that from Esham. In the mid-'80s, Esham would put on basically Joker makeup, and he was a gangster-ass, like, crack-selling dude, but if you listen to his records, he had Black Sabbath samples. He was kind of like very much like Rick Rubin. It was almost like he was influenced by what Rick Rubin did with Beastie Boys' License to Ill, only he took it a lot further. Rather than using Led Zeppelin and Slayer, he went straight back to Black Sabbath, and like, so he was the most satanic motherfucker in Detroit. And he probably still may be the most satanic motherfucker in Detroit.
Of judgment, God is calling.
struck the hour. Thought you're not seeing, so I grin as I sing a song. Who the fuck are you to tell me what's right and wrong? Death is in my eyes, I wear no disguise. You're gonna pay for those little white lies. No more Mr. Nice Guy, I'm in a bus. When I said fuck, I was disgusted.
Dead by dawn! 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 Dead by dawn!
I'm talking about 35 years of work now. I was very lucky to have been in a very strange situation whereby for Palace Pictures I created the poster for The Evil Dead. They took a risk on employing somebody who nobody knew. It was a cheap piece of artwork. I did it virtually as a student, and the film did very well. And on the strength of that, they employed me to do A Nightmare on Elm Street. Another franchise we went on to make a lot of money for Palace Pictures at the time. So I had this great grounding in commercial horror. In the back of my mind, what I wanted to do is make B-movie posters from the 50s.
When I create my art, I never do any little thumbnails or anything like that. The images appear in my head, and when they go down onto the canvas or the paper, whatever it is I render them on, it's like alchemy. The thought becomes something solid, and it's a pattern that employs William Burroughs' cut-up methods, in that I've got ideas from here, there and everywhere, put them all together, and when I've put them together, it reveals what the picture is, even though it's not what I had originally imagined.
Basically, at the moment we're in an installation that I call Kids Room, and this is named after my late friend Kid Bonanno, who was I was very close with on the squat scene in the late 80s. We were sort of punk squatters together, and Kid was always very much into his H.P. Lovecraft, his Nazi occult conspiracy theories, and yeah, basically any kind of sort of black magic or weirdness, he'd be down for it. So I've included him in the show in a posthumous way. We have some of his drawings on the wall and some clothes that he's customized. We also have a quilt that we sewed after he died. Kid always told me that he was collecting t-shirts and scarves and old bits and bobs because he wanted a patchwork quilt, and we used to laugh at him because it's very hippie for a punk to want a patchwork, and he never got it together, and so when he died I was asked to help clear his flat by his sister, and myself, Manco and my mother sewed the memorial quilt for him. The reason that we put Kid Bonanno in a show about Satanism in pop culture is I think he's quite a good example of what people were worried about during the satanic panic of the late 1980s.
Investigative News Group presents the Geraldo Rivera Special. Devil Worship. Exposing Satan's underground.
Whether a Satan exists is a matter of belief, but we are certain that Satanism exists. To some it's a religion. To others it's the practice of evil in the devil's name. It exists and it's flourishing. Members of our studio audience tonight will attest to that. They are friends and foes of Satanism, devil worshippers and law enforcers, experts and victims. They'll help us understand this force that exalts evil and darkness. We'll be asking why. Why does it exist? And why does it appeal to so many vulnerable people, especially the young? Now, the very young and the impressionable should definitely not be watching this program tonight. This is not a Halloween fable. This is a real-life horror story.
He is the kind of heavy metal fan that would praise evil, praise Satan. He was fascinated by all the dark side of life, he was a junkie. He worked in live sex shows at the Church of Satan in Amsterdam to support his habit. And yeah, I think that's why he's relevant to this. This is my portrait of Kid up here. And I have a little photo of him here, which was taken from the photo shoot for Christian Death's Sex, Drugs and Jesus Christ record cover. And he was, of course, the cover model for that. I mean, he was notorious, especially in Italy, for having been this model. The record was banned, I believe, in Italy on the back of its poster campaign. And notoriously, he wasn't just pretending, he was shooting up.
To me, Satan doesn't represent evil. It never has done. Satan represents a force of freedom, a force of fun, the great prankster. I don't believe he's there doing all this evil. It's man that does the evil.
As an atheist, you have to take care yourself for the functioning, society and world, and I like that. I think I think Satanism is really atheism with a good PR.
It's like a blame game for people that don't want to admit that they have dark feelings within themselves and they like acting upon it. But I think Satan means good music, good art, and the ability to choose what you want to do in this life and take accountability for it.
Yes,